Where to start, I suppose. I mean, like other leisure sectors and out-of-home offerings, cinema sits kind of neatly in that. It's had an enormous impact on the sector. Essentially, since the kind of middle of March in 2020, cinemas have required to be closed for the vast majority of that period of time. So trading is essentially stopped. All revenue streams realistically kind of came to an end for cinemas. Some were down something like 85, 90%, revenue compared to previous years. So it's been a huge, huge hit. As I said, like every other kind of out-of-home leisure sector, it's been a very troubling and testing time for our members. There has been a genuine kind of rush back to the cinema, with all the associated caveats applied, with there being social distancing, kind of increased hygiene. There's a cap on the occupancy levels of the cinemas themselves, so people coming in. So in general, the cinemas have been kind of operating at about a 4% capacity. So obviously it's still a big hit based on normal trading levels, but still it's been good so far. Some of the big titles like Fast and Furious 9, which came out last week, has done very, very well. Peter Rabbit 2 has done huge business, considering, we were very uncertain as to whether people wanted to come back out. But I think just to kind of underline some of this, I think prior to the pandemic, cinema was as strong as it's ever been. The 2 years leading up to 2020 were two of the highest years in terms of the box office in the UK for over 45 years. So there was a genuine interest and need and want, I suppose, of people wanting to come out and enjoy the cinema experience. There's an obvious kind of concern about going out and doing anything, I think. I think the one big difference this time around compared to last year when we were allowed to reopen is that, as everyone knows, everyone's gradually being vaccinated. So even though there might be outbreaks in different variants, at least the vast majority of people will have some kind of, immunity to this and some resistance to it. So I think that gives some reassurance to customers, and I suppose it encourages them and incentivizes them to go out to cinemas. But also I think we as a sector, so our members in particular, have kind of done a really good job about shouting about how safe cinemas can be. And at the minute, as I've mentioned already, there's a capacity limit on people. So even if people do go back now, you're not going to expect huge crowds because there can only be about 40% of people allowed into the auditorium anyway. And they're all socially distanced, they're all wearing masks, all that kind of stuff. So I think, yeah, there is definitely going to be some people that are a bit concerned and worried, but based on the last 6 weeks, and I think with the films to come out in the remainder of the year, I think people will start to kind of become more and more confident, and we'll see more and more people coming back. Generally speaking, I would say it's been good. The kind of general support that's been available to all businesses, so the furlough scheme, and you have the kind of the delaying of have to be paying business rates, and a mixture of different things really has been really, really good and really, really welcome. And we continue some of that to kind of, for the remainder of this year and into next year even. However, targeted support for the cinema sector has been probably a little lacking for the big companies. So Odeon, Cineworld, View, Picture House, all the kind of big chains that people are aware of across the UK haven't been able to access any targeted support at all. So they've had to kind of rely on the furlough scheme and a number of other schemes out there available that's been kind of generated and created by government. And have had to kind of just hopefully just exist until we're allowed to reopen again, start trading and bringing money back in. So that's been one bit I'd say hasn't been what we'd hoped as a sector. But I would like to mention that there has been the Cultural Recovery Fund. So that was a pot of money obviously created by government to support the arts, basically. And there was a portion of money carved out for independent cinemas. So a lot of the smaller cinemas that you might see across the country, we're able to apply to that funding. And again, that was very, very welcome. It's really difficult to kind of speculate looking ahead. But I will kind of, re-emphasize the point I think I made at the beginning, is that I think the public, and generally speaking, again, prior to the pandemic, and I think even more so now, were really relishing and enjoying the out of home experience. They wanted to pay for experiences away from the home with friends and family. And we've got to remember, all of us have been essentially cooped up for 18 months in our homes. So I do feel like there is going to be a kind of rush back to the cinema when everything relaxes again and we've got all the new films coming out and everyone is kind of keen to kind of go out and enjoy their lives again. I think that period of time will probably, last at least for a few months or maybe towards the end of the year. But beyond that, I would say the way that the cinema sector is going to have to kind of adapt is it's going to have to really reassure people of how good the big screen experience is. Whether that's to do with investment in the actual technology, the big screens, the great sound, or improving food and beverage offerings. You're seeing now lots and lots of cinemas kind of diversifying their model and kind of changing basically to become kind of like a bar or almost like a restaurant as well, attached to a cinema. So Everyman Cinemas, Picture House Cinemas, even the big three chains are starting to re-look at some of their sites to make them more luxurious, or lux as they're calling them. So I think what's going to happen is that sort of change will happen, I suppose, in the next few years to essentially kind of entice and keep people interested about going out to the cinema and enjoying the big screen experience again. But it's a really interesting question, and I think changes all the time. But as I said, the 2 years leading up to the pandemic was two of the best years we've ever had at the cinema industry in the UK. So unless people's appetites have changed enormously, I don't think that's going to change in the short to medium term.